Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to add a related table to our database. This is going to be a bit longer than normal video. So be patient, but I felt that I had to put all of these together, and if I split them over several videos it may not make quite as much sense. So let's go ahead and get back into our SQL Server Management Studio. The first thing we're going to take a look at are these database diagrams, which currently is empty. If I click this, notice it says doesn't have one or more support objects. It always says that the very first time. Do you wish to create them? You say yes, and then it's basically empty. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and create a new database diagram, and I'm going to add my student table, which is the only one that I have, to it, and click close. Can move this table around. If you've used Microsoft Access before, you probably know that there is something similar to this in Microsoft Access. Actually, the one that Access has, in my opinion, is a little bit nicer. I don't know why they have not implemented the same thing, the same quality in SQL Server. And notice the diagram itself hasn't been saved yet. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to call this sys diagram. What I wanted to show you is that you can also create tables directly from the diagram itself. Let me make this a little bit smaller so I have more space here. I'm going to right click over here and choose New Table. Notice the option for adding a table, which would give us the dialog box that we had before if I had additional tables that I wanted to go ahead and add. But right now I want to create a new table, and I'd like to call this one Course, and click OK. Alright, so we have the same column name, data type, and allows nulls. I'm going to have a CID for course ID. And courses are going to have 6 characters in them, 3 prefixes, such as, for instance, PSY for psychology, and then say 101 for psychology 101. And because I want this to be the primary key, I'm going to set it, and notice that the allow nulls became unchecked by itself. We do have a course name, which is going to be an nvarchar. 50 is sufficient. I am not going to allow nulls for that. I also would like to have a course credit, let's say. And these are going to be all numerical, because we do want to use it in calculations, such as calculating the GPA for a student. So I'm going to make this be tinyInt, because I know that tinyInt goes from 0 to 255, and for one thing it's always positive, no chance of putting negative numbers in it, and why waste a space if it's not necessary. I'm not going to allow nulls for this either. Now one of the things that I would like to do is I like to go to properties right here for credit, and normally when you do this in design view here, you see these properties down below somewhere. Over here I had to right click it because I'm working in the diagram view. And one of the things that I would like to look at is this default value, or binding. And I'm going to go over here and put a default value of 3, meaning that my courses by default will have 3 credits. Great, so we have this. Another thing that I would like to do, since we are here, is I'm going to right click this credit course and go back to indexes and keys. No, actually I want to go to check constraints, I apologize. And I like to write a constraint on this. I'm going to click add. Notice it puts CK course, which I'm going to change to CK course underscore C credits, or credit. And then I have this expression area, which I'm going to click the ellipses. And my expression is going to be that C underscore credit is less than or equal to 5. In other words, I don't want anyone to be able to put in more than 5 credits in the value. They could put 0 credits. Some courses don't have any credits, which is correct. But I don't want them, and they can't put a negative number because tinyInt by itself will not allow it. But I don't want them to put in, 22 credits for something. Choose OK and close. And we are going to, with this selected, highlighted, click Save to save it. Says the following tables will be saved to the database. We wish to continue. Yes, I do. All right, beautiful. Now, notice that the view here and the view here are a little different. I can always right-click this and change the table view. Currently, I'm looking at standard. I can look at column names, which is going to make it look just like students. So you can always do that if you wanted to. The next question you have to ask yourself is, well, what's the relationship between student and courses? We're going to keep this fairly straightforward and simple. At a university, you also have sections. One course may be offered in, 10 different sections. We're not going to bother with that for now. We're just going to assume that there's a single section for all the courses. Nevertheless, one student can take many courses. Also, one course can be taken by many students. This means the relationship between student and course is a many-to-many relationship. And if you recall from the discussion we had from a relationship session and normalization, we want to add a tie and in table, a middle table to actually tie these two together. Now, if I actually wanted to include sections also, etc., then I would have to create some additional tables to include the sections and the faculty, etc., which we're not doing right here. And by the way, I have not added a faculty right here to courses either. That would require additional table for a faculty. So I'm going to right click here and choose a new table. And I'm going to call this student underscore course. You may recall that when a table is used to tie two other tables together, you typically name it after both of those tables. I'm going to put in S underscore ID, the primary key for student in here. And if you recall, that was a big int. And I'm going to also put in the course ID, which is the nchar 6, as you recall. I'm also going to put in, this particular student has taken this course, I want to know what the grade is they got. And this is going to be an nchar 1. And I am going to allow nulls because we don't necessarily have the grades right away. But I would like to right click this and choose check constraints again and add a constraint over here, student course underscore grade. And I'm going to have an expression, and my expression will be that the grade in A, B, C, D, F, W, and let's say I for incomplete. Because we're dealing with strings, in SQL, strings are always put in single quotes, not double quotes, single quotes. I'm going to click OK and close this. Now, this is going to be a situation where we have a compound primary key. I'm going to select the first one, hold the control key, and select the second one. You can also hold the shift key if you want to. Once both are highlighted, I'm going to right click and choose set primary key. And notice that both of these became unchecked for nulls, and we have the primary key. I'm also going to save this. It's a good point now, good idea at this point to actually create our relationships. So I'm going to click on this key and hold my mouse and drag and drop it on this key right here. Dialog pops up and notice it's trying to create a foreign key. It put a FK in front of it. The student ID from the primary table to the student ID in the foreign table. This is correct. And I'm going to click OK. And there it is. You notice the key at this end pointing to the primary key table and the infinity sign at this end, meaning that you can have many students over here. I'm also going to grab this key and drag it to this key right here. You can always change this in the drop-down list if you wanted to. Notice the foreign key table is course ID in the little table, and the primary one is course. So I'm going to click OK and OK, and we have this key created. I'm going to click Save. Two things need to be saved. One, the diagram itself, and then all the tables. So everything was just saved. So we have created our first diagram. We've created these relationships. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and add some data into these tables before we move any further. And then we want to create a front end for this using, say, Microsoft Access, using beautiful forms and reports to interact with the database. Okay, this is it for this course, for this lesson, I should say. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you are enjoying these videos, please share them with your loved ones and your friends. And please remember to share your knowledge, because the internet is where it is today because of generous people who share their know-hows and knowledge. Thank you for being a great audience.